The Galactic Academy's main corridor buzzed with the chittering, growling, and harmonic tones of a dozen different species as students hurried between classes. Among them, James Chen walked quietly beside Lisa Rodriguez, both humans keeping their heads down as they navigated through the sea of alien students. "Just ignore them," Lisa whispered, her dark eyes darting toward the group of Crexian bullies lounging near the quantum physics lab. Their chitinous exoskeletons gleamed under the artificial lights, and their forearms gestured dramatically as they recounted their latest prank on the smaller species. James adjusted his backpack, the weight of his modified tablet pressing against his shoulder. "Easy for you to say. You don't have Zekthor breathing down your neck every day." As if summoned by his words, the largest Crexian pushed away from the wall. Zekthor stood nearly 8 feet tall, his mandibles clicking, with amusement as he spotted the two humans. The other Crexians, Vextar and Killnex, flanked him with predatory grins. "Well, well," Zekthor's translator rendered his speech into perfect standard. "The soft shells think they can just walk past without paying their respects." The corridor seemed to empty around them as other students quickly found elsewhere to be. This was a familiar scene. The Crexians had established themselves as the Academy's unofficial enforcers, using their natural armor and superior strength to intimidate smaller species. "We're just going to class," James said evenly, though his heart hammered against his ribs. "We don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" Zekthor's laugh sounded like grinding metal. "The only trouble here is that you meatbags keep forgetting your place in the natural order." Lisa stepped closer to James, her hand brushing against his arm. "The professors said—" "The professors?" Vextar interrupted. "Aren't here right now, are they?" Zekthor's primary arms reached out, intending to shove James against the wall as he'd done countless times before. It was supposed to be simple, a casual display of dominance, a reminder of who ruled the social hierarchy of the Academy. But James had spent the last 3 months working on something in secret. As Zekthor's chitinous hand made contact with James's shoulder, the world exploded into chaos. The touch activated the modified neural interface James had built into his jacket, a device that interfaced with his tablet and the Academy's network. But more importantly, it interfaced with the Crexians' natural bioelectric field. Every species in the galaxy had evolved their own methods of processing information. Humans used their relatively simple neural networks enhanced by technology. The Crexians, however, had evolved a more complex system. Their entire exoskeleton acted as a secondary processing matrix, storing memories and emotional responses in crystalline structures within their armor. James had discovered this 3 months ago while researching for his xenobiology final, and he'd spent every night since then figuring out how to exploit it. The moment Zekthor touched him, James's device sent a carefully crafted data pulse through the Crexian's bioelectric field. It wasn't an attack, it was much worse. It was embarrassment. Every humiliating moment from Zekthor's childhood came flooding back with perfect clarity. The time he'd fallen into a breeding pond in front of his entire clutch. The moment his voice cracked during his first mating display. The day his own father had called him soft-shelled in front of the colony elders. But the device didn't stop there. It accessed the Academy's social network and began broadcasting every embarrassing memory, every moment of weakness, every private fear that Zekthor had buried in his exoskeleton's crystalline storage. The Crexian stumbled backward, his mandibles chattering uncontrollably as his own nervous system betrayed him. Across the Academy, every student's personal device chimed with notifications. "What did you do?" Vextar demanded, but his voice lacked its usual menace. He was staring at his own device, watching a live stream of Zekthor's most humiliating memories. "Nothing illegal," James said calmly, though his voice shook slightly. "Just a simple data exchange. Your friend touched me first." Lisa stared at him in amazement. "James, how did you—" "Humans are social creatures," he explained, his eyes never leaving Zekthor, who was now curled in a ball on the floor, overwhelmed by the feedback loop of his own memories being broadcast across the Academy's network. We've evolved sophisticated methods of social correction. Shame is one of our most powerful tools. By now, a crowd had gathered. Students from every species watched in fascination as the Academy's biggest bully writhed on the floor, his emotional state displayed for all to see. The Crexian's armor had shifted to a pale, sickly color, the physical manifestation of extreme embarrassment in his species. You see, James continued, addressing the crowd now, you've all been thinking about this wrong. You assume that because humans are physically weaker, we're somehow inferior. But we didn't become the galaxy's most successful diplomats by being strong. We became successful by understanding psychology. Professor Velteran, a tall crystalline being from the Nexus Collective, materialized at the edge of the crowd. Her faceted body reflected the corridor's lights as she assessed the situation. "Explain," she commanded, her harmonic voice cutting through the murmur of the crowd. "Zekthor has been using his physical advantages to establish dominance through fear," James said, his confidence growing. "But fear only works when your victims believe you're untouchable. The moment you show weakness." He gestured to the still trembling Crexian. "The whole system collapses." Professor Veltaran's crystalline structure shifted, the equivalent of a thoughtful nod. "And the data transmission?" "Completely voluntary," Lisa interjected, finally understanding James's plan. "Crexian biology naturally stores emotional data in their exoskeleton. James just helped it along. The moment he touched me," James added, "he consented to the data exchange according to Section 47C of the Academy's Technology Use Agreement. I simply provided him with a more efficient method of sharing his feelings with his peers." Zekthor finally managed to pull himself upright, his armor still pale with humiliation. Around them, students continued to watch the broadcast of his memories on their devices, years of insecurities and embarrassments playing out in real time. "Turn it off," he whispered, his usual bravado completely gone. "I can't," James said, and for the first time, there was genuine sympathy in his voice. "Your exoskeleton is still broadcasting. It'll stop when you stop feeling ashamed." "But that could take hours," Vextar protested. "Maybe days," Lisa added helpfully. Professor Velteran's structure brightened. Laughter in her species. "Fascinating. Mr. Chen, I believe you've just provided us with an excellent case study in interspecies psychology. Perhaps you'd like to present your findings to the advanced xenobiology class." James looked around at the crowd of students, many of whom were nodding with newfound respect. The smaller species, the Pixari traders, the gentle Etherian philosophers, even the usually timid micro-collective drones were standing straighter now. "I'd be honored, Professor." As the crowd began to disperse, Zekthor slowly pulled himself to his feet. His armor was beginning to return to its normal color, but his demeanor had changed completely. The arrogant swagger was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. "How?" he asked quietly, approaching James. "How did you know?" "Because humans have been dealing with bullies for thousands of years," James replied. "We've learned that the biggest ones usually have the most to hide." Zekthor's mandibles clicked softly, a sound of acknowledgement rather than aggression. "I apologize for everything." "Apology accepted," James said, extending his hand. "But if you try to bully anyone else, remember, I've still got that device." As they walked away, Lisa bumped James's shoulder playfully. "You know you're going to be famous across the Academy now, right? The human who humiliated a Crexian with a single touch." James grinned, feeling lighter than he had in months. "Good. Maybe now the other bullies will think twice before picking on the soft shells." Behind them, Zekthor's memories finally stopped broadcasting, but the damage was done. The Academy's social order had shifted, and everyone knew it. Humanity had just reminded the galaxy why they were not to be underestimated, not because of their strength, but because of their ingenuity, their understanding of psychology, and their ability to turn an opponent's greatest strength into their greatest weakness. One touch, one mistake, one humiliated bully, and an entire academy that would never look at humans the same way again.